So we're back for season 3. First of all, welcome back. We're so excited to have our Connection season 3 podcast, and we have a treat. Morgan and I are really thrilled. We have a living legend coming to chat with us today, Rex Chapman.
It's been a little while. You took a little season 2 break, but it was worth the wait. You guys are gonna love this conversation.
Welcome to Connections, the podcast from addiction professionals of North Carolina, where we discuss addiction through the lens of policy and practice.
We're your hosts, Sara Howe and Morgan Coiner, and we're here to help you see how it all connects.
So today, for our season opener of season 3 of APNC's Connections, we are honored to have the legendary Rex Chapman back in North Carolina. Welcome back to North Carolina.
Thanks for having me. It's so fun always being back in Carolina.
We're so excited to have you. For our listeners who might not be our sports folks, we want to give a little bit of background. So you were the Charlotte Hornets' first ever draft pick.
Yep. First ever college draft pick by the Charlotte Hornets in 1988, the 8th pick overall. And I played 3.5 years in Charlotte, 3.5 years in Washington for the Bullets, not the Wizards.
Right. That's right.
A year in Miami for the Heat, and my last 5 years with the Phoenix Suns.
And before that?
Before that, I went to the University of Kentucky. Before that, I went to Apollo High School. Grew up in Owensboro, Kentucky, born and raised in Kentucky. And yeah, that's it, I think.
Well, first of all, it's an honor to have you on the podcast. Thank you for being here. For our listeners who don't know, you just finished speaking at our APNC spring conference, did a book reading. So we have Rex's memoir here, It's Hard for Me to Live with Me. Came out about a year and a half ago.
A little over a year ago.
A little over a year ago. So you had the opportunity to read from the book and do a little bit of a Q&A with me. I'm so sorry you have to do more Q&A with me today.
That's okay.
But we're so thrilled to have you and be willing to be open about opioid addiction, gambling addiction, but also recovery.
Yeah.
And what life looks like now.
Yeah. I guess early on, I realized, if you can, speaking is not something that comes very naturally to me. I've done a lot of interviews growing up, so the Q&A is actually easier for me to process and handle. But yeah, I learned if you can be vulnerable, that right away it draws people in. And as I started reading this morning from the passages, at first I'm a little bit nervous. And then as I see the people starting to, respond, it got easier and easier and easier. And then you kind of have a little connection with the audience, which is kind of cool.
Yep. You start out in the book talking about, you start your prologue talking about the worst part, right? You talk about an arrest in 2013 that ultimately led you on your path to recovery.
Yes.
But before that, you really had an opportunity in basketball to be both in Kentucky and then in the NBA, considered one of the greatest, Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Watched your big game against Louisville.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in that spotlight?
That was kind of surreal. You just go from being a regular old teenager to, around age 15 or 16, 15, I guess, I started standing out, I guess, from my peers. And by the time I was a junior in high school, nationally, I was kind of known. And so you can imagine in the state of Kentucky, it was pretty weird. You're 15 years old and you're just kind of getting into girls and friends and all that stuff. And I remember being at the mall one time in Owensboro, and there's 6 or 7 of us from our school, and coming down the other way, down the mall hallway, there was 6 or 7 from another school, boys, girls, and this girl came up to me and asked me to sign an autograph. And I was like, this is weird. And I signed it, and she took it back over to the group, and they all looked over and went and ripped it up and ha ha ha. And all my friends thought it was funny too. And I'm laughing, but I also am really confused. Like, you know, at first I thought, oh, cute girl, you know, like I was completely roped in. And so at that stage, I start, you know, it's just confusing because you go from, you know, people not caring to everybody kind of wanting to talk to you. And for me, I was very introverted around people I didn't know. So it was a sort of a surreal existence. I got used to it, but it was never truly comfortable.
What was it like dealing with boosters?
Well, fine. You know, the boosters at the time being paid was not legal in college.
Not the same sport, literally.
Right. Yeah. So anything I was getting was technically an NCAA violation. But that didn't stop them. It did from giving. It didn't stop us from taking. So from that standpoint, it was odd. And right away, you learn that, yes, I'm in school, and yes, they've given me a scholarship, but my job is to play basketball. If we're gone for 3 or 4 days out of class, no worries from anybody. How many points did I score, and did we win? And so I realized at a very young age, these people should be paying us. And so for those 2 years at Kentucky, it was eye-opening because you go from kind of just being a kid and being a fan to realizing there's a real business side to all of this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned when you were speaking that you learned from an early age, particularly in basketball with this situation, that there aren't consequences as long as you're winning.
Yeah. Yes. I learned in high school. I started learning in high school that because I was a good basketball player, that if I wanted to take shortcuts in school or shortcuts in anywhere really, that I could probably get around the repercussions. People wrote papers for me. Teachers allowed, if I didn't have my assignment done, get it to me by tomorrow. And that was definitely the case, you know, even when I got to college. Doc, I've got a Tuesday, Thursday class, but our test is on Monday. Our finals test is on Monday. Tuesday's my last test. Yours test isn't until Thursday. Can I take it early? And the first time I asked a professor that, I got right to the end and said, can I take it home early? And he went, go ahead. Like, go on home. Don't even have to take the test.
Oh,
so, yeah.
I feel like that mindset really lays a foundation for addiction.
For sure.
Because that is what addiction is.
Yeah.
It's, I was in addiction for a long time with like, I don't have a DUI, so I don't have a problem, right?
Yeah.
If there's no consequence, the issue's not real. And so learning that actions don't have consequences, then even when the consequences pile up, you kind of just push them to the side. Yeah,
and you know, it's especially, you know, maybe even more magnified because I was an addict. I was a basketball addict. Like, I played all the time. I would wake up in the middle of the night and have a panic attack, that realizing that, you know, it's 11 o'clock here and it's 8 o'clock out west. There are probably kids playing right now. And I'd wake up and do push-ups or wake up and go for a run. And so I was definitely addicted to basketball. But if you think about it, in North Carolina and Kentucky, that's a good thing. No, that's a good thing. And people look at it, well, he's doing something that's good for his body. It's good for, you know, and staying out of trouble and all that stuff. I just didn't have any other interests, which is not healthy as a person, not reading, not, you know, anything.
Yeah.
So I was an addict. I'm full-blown chasing girls, a definite girls addiction. Anything that wasn't drinking and smoking, I'm up for it. You know, let's go have fun. Let's do something. So I remember someone giving me, I think I mentioned in the book, someone gave me a Jolly Rancher one time as a kid, and I ate it. And as I'm eating it, I'm like, you only gave me one of these. Like, I want the whole bag. And
very addiction brain.
Yeah, very much.
Well,
So.
and I think something you do so well in the book, I was talking to Sara about it, is the mind of a person in active addiction is so well captured.
Yeah.
You're seen in the Apple store when you first steal.
Right.
You're like, I didn't go in there to do that. Like, this was sort of in front of me, and I realized I could, and so I did. And the same with gambling. It's just like, well, I just could, so I did. And then walking out of there like, I hate myself, and I don't want to be this person, and I don't want to do this. And yet, I can't stop doing this. Like, that was so well described and depicted. Like, this is great for people in recovery, but this book also, I think, is so important for families to understand that mindset of like, this is what it feels like when you're in it.
Yeah. And, you know, and I still do this. My dad does it. I talk negatively to myself. And I think a lot of that comes from sports too. And, you know, my fault. And come on, Rex, you know, just, and so I don't think I knew I had a problem. I was in Vegas, and I'll never forget. I was in Vegas, and I was probably 35, so I've been retired for a little bit. I'm out there with a buddy, and I had just a terrible session at the blackjack table. And I came upstairs, and I remember cussing myself out the entire walk upstairs. I got in the room, and I grabbed the very first thing I could see, which was like a cocktail glass. And I threw it up against the window. It shattered everywhere. And in that moment, I just went, I need to leave. I got to leave. And I got out of there. But that's just one instance where I threw something and broke something. There were so many instances where I felt exactly the same way. And, you know, those instances started me thinking, look, if you win, it's not going to change your life. So you are definitely seeking out the losing too. You know, that's inevitable. You know, that's a feeling that you get. It's a bad feeling, but it's a feeling. And so just the constant roller coaster, I think, kept me from addressing anything important going on in my life. Anything that I needed to address that might keep me from that behavior. So I was just so far lost in my gambling addiction that I didn't, you know, I really couldn't see straight.
We just don't talk about gambling addiction. And here we're at the Addiction Professionals Conference. So we're going to talk about OxyContin. We're going to talk about opioids. We're certainly going to have that conversation too. But we do not in this country really dive into gambling. It has one of the highest suicide rates of any addictive disorder.
Yeah. I can remember. And again, I had money at that time, and I'm reacting that way. I just imagine not having money. And when I didn't have money, what did I do? I stole to support that habit. You know, you hear horror stories all the time, especially when OxyContin came out initially, you know, housewives who had back issues and whatnot, all of a sudden they're off their 2-week supply of OxyContin and they're breaking into pharmacies to get the OxyContin. So, yeah, you know, I think we're at a pretty, you know, and I don't want to be that guy. Gambling's bad. You know, I did it my whole life. I have some of my best friends, they play horses every day and they play sports gambling every day. Some of them are fine. Some of them are not. And I just think about the young people in high school and college. As long as you've got a phone, you can gamble. You can get an app, and whether your parents know it or not, you can do that. I think about the kids that are off to school. You know, now everyone used to go out to have fun. You had to be with people to have fun. Seemed like, anyway.
Yeah.
And now you just sit, and you can sit, and guys are watching football games and betting football games. They're not even going out and meeting girls.
Right.
So it's a very different time. And I think we're probably headed for a pretty bad, you know, epidemic of gambling.
Oh, for sure. And it makes me think, like, I was a latchkey kid. I was raised by a single mom. And there was a show she didn't want us to watch, but one of our friends had it on DVD. And so she'd be at work and we'd watch that show on DVD, and then we'd hide it under our mattress, whatever. And I'm like, I mean, it was a show. It was fine, right? Like now, oh, mom's not home. I can get on the computer. I can bet all my money away. Like the consequences and the stakes for today's youth are way higher than they were.
No question.
Right.
No question. And then at that point, the value of a dollar goes away. And, that's even, I had to start completely over because I'd always had money. From the time I went to college, I had plenty of money. And, my first contract, I'm making $700,000 as a teenager. And, my bills are whatever, $5,000-6,000 a month, my apartment, all of that. And it just seemed like funny money. And so, you get a lot of athletes are that way. But yeah, it's very confusing.
Well, you tell a story in the book about being on the golf course with Michael Jordan, and at the end, you now owe $10,000, and I don't have $10,000, but I do have a booster at the University of Kentucky that I can call. Yeah,
there were several people like that, and I know the person. He's passed away now, but a really good dude, really good friend, and I called him up and said, "Hey, I asked for $50,000 because I was fresh out of college." And this was like June, so I'd just been drafted. You don't start getting paid till you sign your contract, and then even then, it's not till like October 15th.
Oh wow!
So I owed $10,000. I borrowed $50,000. I've never seen this much money in my life. All of a sudden, I've got $50,000 in my bank account. Well, $40,000 now, and by the time October came around, I'd blown through all that money, just like an idiot. So, young. And then, that was an era too where I was young. I was a teenager when I got to Charlotte, and it wasn't real cool at the time to have your parents or someone living with you.
Sure.
So I was there all on my own. Thank God for Del Curry and Sonia Curry and Muggsy Bogues and Brittany Bogues, because they basically raised me for 2 or 3 years, even though I was one of their teammates.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. We talked today about this accessibility of gambling, and you're right, it's not going away. Yeah. So let's be clear,
yeah,
sports have changed. There is gambling in sports. So the object of the podcast isn't how do we put the genie back in the bottle?
Yeah.
It's out.
Yeah, I don't know that you can do that.
Right.
It's weird, in the 80s and 90s when I was playing early and throughout the 2000s, the NBA had a very strong stance, which was every year they would come through, and at the beginning of the season, they have a meeting with every team, 30 different teams, and they put up on a board pictures of people you are not supposed to associate with in Chicago, New York, Miami, and some different places. These are known gamblers. And then the other thing, you never talk about the line of a game. You shouldn't even know the line of a game. If someone asks you, you don't say anything. And so it was a very, very bad thing. And now, if you watch the TNT telecast, the ESPN telecasts, they're all giving their parlay in picks and what the lines are. And it's just become enmeshed. Now, yes, the players and the owners and everybody, they're getting a cut of that gambling. That there's a portion of that goes to pay. So we're all in bed with the gambling outlets now.
Right.
And it's kind of been whitewashed into this fancy, it's good, it's no problem, it's just gambling. There's going to be a lot of people that are a lot of lives ruined.
Right. And so much of it, I mean, we think about the tobacco industry, pharma, the alcohol industry, like so much of these issues are so systemic at like a huge level, right? Like all of this didn't just happen. things were set into place. It was very strategically
Capitalism.
done, right?
That's what this is.
Right.
This is, they could have been making money on this forever. They just decided now's the time that we're going to do that. And for years, North Carolina and Kentucky, they did not want legalized gambling. In Kentucky, they felt like that's going to take away from the horse industry. If people are allowed to play slots or gamble on ball games and all that, and they resisted it forever. A lot of backlash from the Christians and the folks who really thought of that as a moral thing, from marijuana to legalizing marijuana to gambling. And now you look, Kentucky's legalized both. And I think Carolina has legalized gambling, but not marijuana yet. That'll come. It'll come. Got all the land to grow it.
Legislation.
You got all the land to grow it. And even if you don't legalize it here, you can sell it to other states. Yeah. Kentucky, weed's the biggest cash crop since I've known.
Right. Right.
It just wasn't legal.
You know what I find? It's a double-edged sword, because you mentioned this and we've talked about it. Gambling was in the shadows. It was taboo. We call it degenerate gambler. I mean, there's, we use these stigmatizing terms, right? Because we didn't associate gamblers. I mean, Pete Rose went to his grave as, hated, right? And I'm grateful for the sense that we've stopped saying, those types of things about individuals and their behavior. So it's a double-edged sword, because we're removing stigma. We're not saying that, but by removing some of that stigma and opening Pandora's box way to the other end, now it's wide open, like you said, to kids. I mean, you're 5 years old, you're watching a game.
They'll never know it was bad. They'll never know it was bad. And I think back to my childhood. My dad gambled. He gambled on horses. That was it. But I knew he loved it. I saw him happy when he was doing it. I saw him mad when he'd get beat. But from that young age, if your dad is doing it and the people he knows and that I like, his friends, they're doing it, they all seem like great guys, you wouldn't think anything's wrong with it. And now we're going to have a generation of kids that just don't know any other way than to watch a game. And it's not fun unless you have some action on it.
Right. Not enjoy the beauty of the sport.
Yeah. I think a lot of that's gone.
It is. Yeah. It really, and it's changed NIL, like you said, and the amount of money that is more obvious, right? More acceptable.
You tell people who aren't sports ball people what NIL is?
NIL.
I recently learned that, but I'm just, I imagine many of our people might not know that term.
It's called name, image, and likeness, and it's kind of silly, in my opinion. Schools should be paying players. That the NCAA, they should make them employees and pay them as employees, where they got benefits and all of that stuff. That it'll come to that at some point. The schools do not want that, because they don't want to pay the play. NCAA does not want to pay its labor. That's the bottom line. And so, the NIL allows players to cash in on their own name, image, and likeness. When I went to school, you signed a national letter of intent that gave the NCAA your name, image, and likeness. They own it now in perpetuity, forever. I was at Kentucky with my oldest daughter, who's now 30. When she was 18, she enrolled at Kentucky, and we came from out of state to go to orientation. And we're in orientation with 2,000 other incoming freshmen and their parents, and they're showing a video of the school on the thing. And in that video, I was on there 3 times from playing ball in my Kentucky playing days. And I'm paying full load, full boat for her to go to school. Wow. I saw none of that name. We weren't allowed to do that. Right. You couldn't even have a job during the season. So
you couldn't advertise.
No, you couldn't advertise anything.
And that's fairly new, right?
Yeah,
it's within the last 3 or 4 years. Okay. So now, like I said earlier, Kentucky, I think the University of Kentucky is not. boosters from the University of Kentucky, or a booster, is basically paying $20 million for next season's basketball team. They're paying this player $3.5 million and this player $3.5 million. It just tells you the money's always been there.
Right.
They've just been hoarding it.
Exactly.
It's just, it's really, it's changed the landscape.
I'm happy. I'm sorry to cut. I'm happy. I'm very happy that these young people are making money. And the main reason I am is because 90%, I'm making that up, but ish, 90% of college athletes will not go on to play what we term professional when they're actually pro athletes.
Say that in the commercial. I think they say 95% will go pro in something other than sports. Yep.
So I just remember being at Kentucky, and yes, I was being paid under the table, and some of my teammates were being paid under the table. But even those guys, they didn't make it afterwards. And at that point in time, they realized, hey, this booster's not taking me out to dinner anymore. This person, they're not giving me it was over for them. And so, and that's if you play at Kentucky or North Carolina or Duke, people know who you are. And when you're done, if you've gotten your degree, you can usually go on and do some good things. If you don't, though, and you've been treated like a star for the last 4 years, people have been giving you money, and it's over. I'm just happy that those athletes, they're able to make something now during college. This could set them up for life.
For sure.
But
Absolutely.
not if they fall into the
Well, and even if there's an injury.
Injuries. Yeah.
We see
all of it.
Career-ending injury
All
at
the
age
time.
18.
Yep.
All
the time.
All the time.
And it's hard.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I'd love to pivot for a second because I have, your son Zeke and I are the same age.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, 1992. I was really excited about that for no reason. But I was thinking about him a lot during the book.
Yeah.
One, because you talk about your kids so much in the book, which I love. But two, because I lost my mom to an opioid overdose.
Oh, gosh.
And so
I'm so sorry.
thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm reading this book and I'm just watching. He and I probably experienced a lot of very similar things.
Yeah.
And yet he now gets to live out a very different story than I do. And I think I'm almost like, there's no question here. I just think there's something really powerful in that. Like, this is so common.
Yeah.
So many kids born in 1992, like me and Zeke, have a parent who struggled with this. And not all of our parents were able to make the same decisions you are. And I'm not talking from like a privilege standpoint. I mean from like an honest self-reflection, a bravery, a willingness to engage with the idea that they had a problem.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that I was so like moved by in the book was your kids were very much a driving force in your recovery.
Maybe the driving force. Yeah.
And even your daughter having, what about your gambling problem?
What about
that moment of clarity.
And if you know Kaylee, perfectly on brand.
I would love to hear you talk a little bit about your kids and what
and doing today.
And that experience of rebuilding that relationship. Because there, I'm sure, were a lot of things broken in them throughout your addiction. And so one, from a child who did not get that experience, like,
I'm so sorry.
Thank you for the work you've done for them.
Thank you.
But I would love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I should have mentioned in the speech earlier. So my son, Zeke, he played high school basketball, was a really good basketball player. He was an all-state player. He was recruited. He played at Ball State and finished up school at Arizona State. But he's the head video coordinator for the Charlotte Hornets now. So he and Dell Curry and Seth Curry saw on the team. They travel the country together on the plane every night. So having Zeke know Dell like that and Seth like that is really cool. So he's great. My daughter Kaylee she got her master's in autism disorders, and she has her own program at a school in Phoenix for smaller children. She's great. Tatum, our middle daughter, she's graduated. She does some work over at the school. And our youngest daughter, Tyson, she just graduated from University of Arizona and took a job in Italy to teach English as an au pair to a little girl for 6 months. She just got home yesterday, so I'll see her tomorrow, but she's already planning on going back. So
Oh, wonderful.
24 and single and young. Why not?
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
But yeah, they're doing great. But yeah, so much guilt and shame that I have gone through and that I still experience with them. They were all. Zeke was in college. Kaylee was in college when I got in trouble. And the two younger ones, though, were in like 8th and 9th grade. And so they know all their friends know. It's in the news. It's on TV. And just knowing that I've put them all through that stuff, it's just tough to deal with. I have to give huge props to their mom. My ex-wife, Bridget, we were married for 20 years, and it was very rocky due to me. She has always been great, and when I got in trouble and arrested, she and I weren't even speaking to one another. And so when I call her from jail, she could not have been more generous, and that also made me feel bad. So I think them, coming to terms with me and who I am and what I've done and all of that is definitely, she helped immensely with them being able to, I can imagine her saying, that's your dad and you got to love your dad. And so when many people who gone through divorce, especially early on in the divorce, they might not have responded that way. So I'm very grateful, very thankful. I think I love and appreciate her much more now than I ever did when we were together.
Yeah.
What response have they had to the book?
The kids were pretty good for the most. Actually, they were very good. My dad, who I was concerned about, he was very good. My mom, my sister, and my ex-wife were not as good. And that was hard because, it's the stuff that's in there is the truth. But, their interpretation might have been different than mine.
Sure.
And I had a couple of conversations with my sister, and true to the asshole that I am from time to time, I remember saying to her, write a book. Put that in your book. Like she was upset that I said this. She was upset about, my sister's funny. I
loved some of those.
Yeah, I know. She's my biggest fan and my worst critic. So,
as all good siblings.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That's right. But yeah, it was hard. I think harder for those three, but they've come around.
Your sister showed up for you.
Oh yeah,
in the middle,
no question.
Baby hating you.
Yeah, no.
Sarah was like, all right, like this is what family does, and I was very impressed by her book because
she and I.
There were times where I don't know that I would have done that for my mom.
I know.
Like that's. I was like, okay, Jenny.
Yeah, no, that's right, and you said something. I think that you lost your mom to an opioid addiction. And you know how that feels as a child. I can only imagine how my children would feel had that same fate happened. But I also think about my parents because I think about the worst thing in the world that a parent can go through is if one of their kids is going through it. Mm-hmm. Like if one of my kids were to ever go through it, the guilt and shame and just the being terrified for them and what they're going to have to sort of endure for the rest of their lives. It's just, and so I know my parents feel that way.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, not to make this the Organ and Rex podcast now, but my mom, when I told her I was trying to get into recovery from alcohol, she started sobbing. And I was like, this is my hard problem. How are you fine?
Yeah.
But she just said, I don't want this life to be
Yes.
any harder for you than it has to be.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry that it has been.
Yeah.
Like, it was like this moment for her of realizing, like, oh,
Right.
that's my kid and
Yeah.
I'm the baby girl. So, like,
Yeah.
you know, there's this extra
Yeah.
special thing there. And it was like it really devastated her in a way.
No
like,
question.
I would have couched it in much different language,
Right.
everything,
You
if
had
I
known.
realized that it was going to break her heart the way
Right.
it did. Not because she was disappointed in me, but because she was like,
She was just
that means you're struggling and I don't like that. And so it's an interesting
she's
dynamic.
probably trying
And she was
trying to
struggling with it
negotiate.
herself.
She's struggling with it, but then also
You know?
trying to negotiate the emotions of what have I done to
Yeah.
make this happen?
Mhm.
Whether
Yeah,
it's
there's
true or
so
not,
much there, but
whether it's real or not,
Yeah.
that thought goes through, their mind. And how have I screwed this up so
Right.
badly?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's great
hard.
to like hear. I think when someone dies from an overdose, there are so many questions left over, and so it's always nice to hear from people
Yeah.
who made it to the other side and be like, oh, maybe that's some of what was driving
Yeah.
or there. It's just
Yeah.
like I said, not that this is the Morgan's therapy,
No,
but it is very healing to
glad you
hear
shared it.
you say some of those things and be like, oh yeah, like
yeah,
you just remember.
Yeah,
the good parts
that's
of all of
exactly
it,
right. It's just hard. I'm
So-
glad you shared it. Thank you.
I think it's important, whether it's sharing your story, whether it's putting it on paper, there are recovery stories. It is important to share those that people can get to recovery. And even like you said, as you look at others' stories, it helps heal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It absolutely. We were talking the other day. One of our speakers said, like, I didn't set out to be an addiction.
Yeah.
Nobody wakes up and says, you know
Yeah.
what? Here's what I'm going to do.
Sounds fun.
Free
That's
fun.
well, they say drugs are fun at first, and then it's drugs and problems very quickly, and then it's just problems after that. And so getting to the other side is something, but I promise I never thought I would. I just thought for those 12, 13, 14 years that this was just going to be my life forever. There was no way I could get off this medicine. It was too powerful. I think if I get off this medicine, look at all the shit I have to deal with, which
keeps
you
you
gotta
on.
deal with it
Mhm.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I still struggle from that. Like, even though I'm clean and all that stuff, I still struggle with putting things off and thinking that just because I've conditioned myself that way, that I have to be cognizant about, okay, take care of this. You got to take care of this adult stuff that I ran from forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think you put that out there in the book. And I think it's really helpful too, that everybody thought, oh, well, you were King Rex and it was Rexington. And for others to say, oh, so you had self-doubt.
Yeah.
You had negative thought. We all do. The imposter syndrome
Yeah, that's
is real for
me.
every
Yeah.
single person, but we still don't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. I even do that with basketball. People will, it's objectively something I was good at, but all I think about is, I could have been better, or if I'd done that and I didn't make that all-star team. And so it's just all the, if I'd have done this, I'd have done better. Imposter stuff.
Yeah, my dad used to he was very big on like kids should be able to have fun playing sports. That was like his bottom line. And so he got really frustrated with a lot of the college athletic dynamics. I went to Virginia Tech, so he said like big sports school. And one of the things he said was like, the people playing are kids, and then you take a kid not even graduated from college into the NBA. You're not built for that kind of pressure at that age. You barely know how to cope with the world, let alone like that kind of pressure. And so it just sets everything up.
That's a really good point. And here's a sort of a counter to that, is that I was ready for that pressure and the playing. I was not ready for anything else life-wise.
Yeah.
I could deal with that, and I wanted that pressure. That was something I'd worked my whole life for. I was confident that nobody had played more or worked any harder than I had. So I was very confident in that. What I was not confident in, for real, and I said this in the book, first night in my new apartment, I go to turn off the lights to go upstairs because I got practice the next day, and I looked upstairs. I've never lived any place other than with my parents or in a dorm, and I've had a roommate. And I looked up the stairs and it was dark. And I went, nope. And went back and slept on the couch and turned on the TV because I was scared of the dark. I was the number one pick for the Charlotte Hornets, 19, 20 years old, and scared of the dark. And the next night I got over it and did all that. But it's a young brain. And most of my teammates are older. They've been in the expansion draft. They have kids. They're married.
Right.
I'm there by myself on my own. I don't have school to go to. You know, I would every now and then I'd just go hang out with a buddy or two that had friends at UNCC.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so we'd go over there and I'd hang out with college kids.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a lot of things for a young brain. Yeah.
I mean, I'm so thankful that you wrote this.
Thanks.
I hope more people get a chance to read it because it's very eloquently done, putting
Thanks
your
to Seth
life out there.
Davis.
Thanks to Seth Davis for convincing you to do this, but putting your life out there. We talk about this all the time in our field, that even going and sharing your story at an AA meeting, an NA meeting, that's hard, but it's with, quote, your people.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
You put this way beyond, quote, your people who knew the story. And it's a brave thing to do. I don't say that lightly or cliche. It is to put that out there, but it will change people's lives.
I hope so.
And for that, we're so grateful, and just your willingness to share this, your willingness to talk with us and be vulnerable and have this conversation.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's amazing.
Thank you for
Have a great day.
Yeah.
I could have carried that conversation with Rex on for another hour.
Well, when y'all started talking sports, I was like, we are going to talk for an hour because
That's a whole other podcast.
for sure.
Just incredible. He was so open.
His plenary session that he did with us at the conference was amazing. We've gotten so much great feedback.
Yeah.
But this really takes it one step deeper. I think if you haven't read his book, definitely get it.
Yeah.
But this conversation really was maybe not more vulnerable, but just it really gets at the heart of what his message is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think this conversation really was more than I expected. But I'm so grateful for it because there are a lot of people out there that can benefit from his story and need to hear it.
I'm so glad that you went after it to get him to APNC. You've been wanting to get him here for a long time once you read his book.
Thrilled that he was here.
It was awesome.